Hey everybody, as I'm sure you're well aware by now, we had a pretty significant incident take place not too far from my house, about an hour away from where I live in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the shooting that took place at the Donald Trump rally. And I've been asked by a lot of people to share my thoughts. I don't know why that is, but people want to hear from me on this. And I guess, though I typically don't talk about modern politics, there is obviously a very historical element to this, because this is something that we're going to be talking about for decades and even centuries to come. We talk often about other incidents that took place like this. So just historical context, in the past we have had attempted assassinations of presidents and former presidents and future presidents. Some, of course, successful assassinations. We've had 4 presidents that have been assassinated. That's not unique to the United States. There have been prime ministers that have been assassinated in the UK. There have been monarchs that have been assassinated over time. And here, just in the last few decades, we obviously had a president shot in 1981, Ronald Reagan. There were a number of attempted assassinations of Gerald Ford. There was an incident in George W. Bush's term in office where he was with the president of Georgia on a stage, and somebody rolled a grenade onto the stage, but it did not go off, thankfully. So unfortunately, when you are in a position of power or potential power or perceived power and influence, you become a target for people. So that's a little bit of the historic context. I think there are threats to every single person who holds the office in the United States. The U.S. Secret Service was actually created on Abraham Lincoln's last day in office, before he was shot that night on April 14th, 1865, but it was created as part of the Treasury Department. And one of their primary roles is to deal with counterfeiting of money. It wasn't until 1901, after the assassination of President McKinley, that they were given the job of protecting not only U.S. presidents, but also candidates, as is the case with Donald Trump. Now, he already had a Secret Service detail. I think the current law is 10 years after a president leaves office. They have a detail. When a person's in office, they have protection for close family members, especially children, for obvious reasons. So all of that is just a little bit of historic context, but I want to share just my thoughts in general on what I see happening. And I want to say 2 things. Number one, none of this is unique to our time period. The divisiveness and the vitriol and just the venom that is spewed by people from one party to the other is something that has gone on as long as the United States has existed, and it's gone on in other places as well. So it's not unique to this time period. It's not unique to this country. But I also want to say that it's not unique to one political party or the other. There are people on every side of every political spectrum who are guilty of just not knowing how to disagree. We have, again, I want to say this, it's going to sound like I'm saying this is new, but we've lost the ability to disagree with each other. At least a lot of people have. And again, that's not unique. It's not new. It just seems like it's come about again, and it's become a cycle where it's something that has gotten bad again, just like it has many times before. I mean, I live in a country where we had a civil war over the fact we couldn't disagree with each other in a civil way. And it led to 750,000 deaths in this country. 2% of our population died because we didn't know how to figure things out without fighting. So unfortunately, it's not new. But just some examples of some things I saw in the aftermath of this particular event. And again, this is not unique. So when I'm pointing out what's happening right now, understand that I recognize that the same kind of stuff has happened on the opposite end of the political spectrum. That's just the reality. So when all of this went down, I mean, literally within minutes of the news breaking about this, I saw people on social media, people that are friends of mine, people that I like and I trust, and I think I have a good head on their shoulders, saying awful things like, his aim should have been better, or it was staged. Let me talk about the staged thing for just a second. Let me just put this in context. Here's the mental gymnastics you have to jump through in order to believe that this thing was staged. You have to believe that Donald Trump, who I will acknowledge right up front is a guy who, I'm not a psychologist, but I think he's probably definitely would be classified as a narcissist. That doesn't mean he can be a good or bad president. That's just facts, right? And there's a place for that kind of attitude, I suppose. But you have to believe that someone who's running for president is so desperate to get elected that he would put himself in a situation where a 20-year-old recent high school graduate from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, is going to have the opportunity at like 150, 160 yards away with a gun that's really not even a sniper rifle, with like an AR-15 style gun that isn't exactly for marksmanship at that distance. And you're going to trust him to graze you on the ear with that gun. Let me put this in perspective. Would you, and my friend JD said this to me yesterday, would you trust someone who was a trained Navy SEAL sniper at 450 yards, or 450 feet, to shoot an acorn off of your shoulder? Would you stand there and let them do that? Now, that might be one of the best marksmen in the world, but the variables that are involved with wind and a person moving just a little bit here and there, and the time it takes the bullet to travel, and your own nerves and breathing and all of those sorts of things, are you going to trust that to not kill you? And then you're telling me that that was staged and you're going to let a 20-year-old take that shot and come that close to you? Come on. That's some serious mental gymnastics. This was not staged. This is not something that the Trump campaign came up with in order to win votes. Now, will it help him in the long run? I think probably it will. Whether it should or not, it's a different story. But number two, if you're in that situation and you're trying to stage something to set yourself up for this triumphant moment where you can say, look, they shot me, but I'm going to keep on going, a la Teddy Roosevelt. Would you really want one of your supporters to be killed in that process? So there's a lot. Let's just throw that out right now, okay? Let's just acknowledge that this is a young man who decided to do this. We're going to find out that there are some mental health issues involved. These things don't happen for one reason or another. They happen because of a multiple number of factors. I'm sure there's mental health involved. I'm sure there's trauma involved in this young man's past at some point, whatever that might be. There was opportunity. Bethel Park's not that far from Butler. He saw an opportunity to do something. There's certainly going to be some questions about security, about why this young man was able to get line of sight like he did. So let's just acknowledge right now, this is a horrible, horrible thing that happened. And whether it helps Donald Trump in the campaign or not, this is not something that was planned by him. I guarantee that. The other thing, though, that has really upset me with not only what has happened with this, but in general, is how quick we are to make jokes about it. Listen, whatever your political beliefs, whatever you think of Donald Trump, whatever you think of the Republicans, whatever you think of the platform and what they believe in and what they stand for, somebody died because they were there to support the candidate of their choice. They were murdered. A father, a husband, a 50-year-old man who, from all we can hear about this man so far, was an upstanding member of his community, went to a rally to support the political candidate of his choice, and died there. And social media accounts and people, again, that I have followed for a long time and that I have respected, have been making jokes about this. And that is not okay. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, somebody died. A person was murdered. Can we please not forget that? We were inches away from seeing, if that bullet had been a couple inches to the right, we would have seen in 4K on television a former president, a presidential candidate, basically have his head blown off on live TV. Think about the Zapruder film, what happened with John F. Kennedy. That's what we would have seen, but in full detail. So that's that. And I want to say that I so appreciate that folks like President Biden and Vice President Harris and many of the other prominent members of the Democratic Party came out strongly in support of Donald Trump's safety and offering their prayers and their well-being, their well wishes to him, but also to the family of the person who died. And that's how it should be. And I would like to think that had the roles been reversed, that Donald Trump would do the same thing. Listen, I get it. Donald Trump says a lot of things that I'll acknowledge up front are just not good. And I think he's his own worst enemy. But I want to point out that even he has been capable of that kind of magnanimity. Go back and look at the video of when he found out, I think he was getting off or getting onto a plane, and he found out that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died. Somebody that I would think people of Donald Trump's political persuasion would not think very highly of. And he was very genuinely remorseful about her death and expressed, I think, some pretty heartfelt condolences over that. So people are capable of that, even people we don't expect it from. And I'd like to think that's what we could do. We just have to learn to disagree with each other. I think back to an incident that happened when, in 2008, during that campaign, when John McCain and Barack Obama were running against each other for president. And there was an incident at a town hall that John McCain was doing, and a lady stood up and said some things that had been spread by other people that were pretty popular in the media at that point, some derisive things about Barack Obama. And McCain shut it down right then and there. He said, no, listen. Barack Obama and I disagree about a lot of fundamental things about how this country should go, what the direction should be. But I also want you to know that he's a good and decent person. He's a father, he's a husband who is a patriot, who loves this country, and we just happen to have a different view of what that looks like. That's how it should be. That's how people on the right should see people on the left. That's how people on the left should see people on the right. That's how people in the middle should see others. And here's the thing. Whenever stuff like this gets said, I guarantee while I'm saying all of this, some of you are sitting there and thinking, yeah, that's true, but, and there's the problem. There's the problem. We think that the other side should be held to that standard, but in our case, in our minds, yeah, that might be true for most people, but because I don't like candidate A, I don't think that is true when it comes to that person. Yes, you should be respectful and decent when disagreeing with me and with my candidate. But when it comes to your candidate, he doesn't deserve that sort of treatment. He doesn't deserve my respect. And there's the problem. We all think that at some time or another about a person. You can disagree strongly with a person. You can know in your mind that if that person gets elected, that, oh my gosh, our country is done for. That doesn't mean we need to be disrespectful, that we want to wish harm on that person. We have a political process. Let's let it play out. Let's have free and fair elections. Hopefully, whoever wins this fall, it's decisive enough, one way or the other, that we don't have to go through those kinds of arguments again. But come on, guys. Let's just figure out how to disagree with each other. I did a post yesterday on Instagram that was very bipartisan. It was from Benjamin Watson, who used to play for the Cleveland Browns as a tight end, played for the New Orleans Saints for a long time, played for the New England Patriots. And he posted just how he was sad. He was sad that this kind of thing happened. He was sad that a person was murdered. He was sad that he wasn't surprised that it happened. He was sad for America. I posted that. Those are exact things that he would have said and that I would have said if it had been Joe Biden who had been nearly killed. 100%. Within 10 minutes of me posting that on Instagram, people were arguing about it. People were arguing about Donald Trump, arguing about Joe Biden. And I had to turn comments off on what should have been something that all of us should have been able to agree on. That's where we're at. And again, it's not the first time we've been there. It's not the last time we'll be there. But we all need to take a step back, take a deep breath, take a look at ourselves and how we're disagreeing with each other. We are just incapable of not expressing something. And sometimes we just need to shut up and listen. My friend JD and I were talking about this yesterday, about how he and I both had an opportunity to spend time with Martin Sheen. And Martin Sheen is not somebody with whom I agree too much on politics. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. I've got so much respect for him. And he and I completely disagree on things. And as I was talking to him, I recognized that while he recognized he disagreed with me on a lot of things, he was also very respectful to me. It's possible. And as soon as I posted a video of Martin Sheen and Sam Waterston in Gettysburg from when I spent time with them, immediately everybody started jumping all over how much they hated Martin Sheen because of his politics. Somebody that they've never met, somebody that they've never spent time with, but because they support a different political viewpoint, they were incapable of showing common decency and respect to this man. That's unfortunately where we're at. So I want to challenge all of us to look within ourselves, to ask ourselves the question, am I capable of disagreeing with somebody without being a jerk about it? Because when we start labeling people as Hitler, we start labeling people as Stalin, and again, both sides do this. When we start saying someone is a threat to democracy, and again, Joe Biden has been said, this has been said about Joe Biden, it's been said about Donald Trump, it was said about George W. Bush, it was said about Barack Obama, it was said about Bill Clinton, it goes on and on and on. When you start saying that person's a threat, and we're going to lose our country if that person gets elected, a person who is not stable, who is not completely in control of their faculties, is going to hear that and think, you know what, you're right. That person's a threat, and I need to put a stop to that threat. And I guarantee that's what that young man was thinking, because he heard it said. He still is responsible for the choices that he made, but we are responsible for our words. And one last thought before I wrap this up, and I hope this has all made sense. I don't have any notes. I've just been kind of going off the top of my head and off of my heart. I did Rachel's Challenge at Bethel Park twice, in 2015 and again in 2018. There's a really good chance that I was in the same room with that young man when I did Rachel's Challenge, which was all about kindness and compassion and about how we treat each other. And I've read some reports about how he was treated in school. And so just for me personally, I'm taking this very personally right now, because unless he was absent those days, twice I was in the same room with that young man talking about how we treat each other with compassion and kindness. And I wonder if the message got through to him. I wonder if it got through to the people who maybe didn't treat him so well. And I wonder how many of us need to be reminded of that now. If you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're an independent, you're an atheist, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, you're black, white, Native American, Asian, whatever you are, whoever you are, you're entitled to common decency and respect from me. And I wish we could learn to do that for people with whom we disagree, even people we think would be a disaster if they were elected. Let's tone it down a little bit, folks. Come on. Disagree passionately, fight for your candidate, but do so in a way that is respectful and civil and doesn't lead to what we saw. And I hope we never see it again.